Come back. President Bola Tinubu's policies are being scrutinized and criticized by the opposition, especially those yet to come to terms with his victory at the polls 1 year after. But the presidency insists the reforms introduced are beginning to pay off, despite the initial hardship it caused. Joining me via Zoom from England is a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, Daniel Bwala. Hate him or love him, he tells it as it is. Welcome to the program, Mr. Daniel Bwala.
Thank you, Femi. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're talking about President Bola Tinubu's reforms and the impact it's having across the country. It caused so much hardship, especially the removal of fuel subsidy. But the president is telling us, the presidency is saying that it's beginning to yield the desired results. Do you agree?
Yeah, sure. I think that the fiercest critics, they are beginning to accept the reality of the fact that the work that is done to the fundamentals of the economy, which is the foundational work, is beginning to show. We have been, as a country, so used to the status quo that sometimes when you want to effect a change, we become very uncomfortable. It's like somebody who is used to a particular thing and you want to change the way he reasons or the way he operates. There is going to be an initial reaction. And usually what will determine whether the people calm down or not is result, which is what I think the works of President Bola Tinubu is beginning to show. I think it is Isaac Newton, I think in his first law, where he says in the law of inertia, he said, in essence, everything maintains a status quo until a force is applied to it. Specifically, he said, an object at rest remains at rest, an object in motion remains in motion at constant speed in a straight line, unless acted upon by an unbalanced power.
But
so what are the policies of...
Are there achievements that Nigerians can see, touch, and feel? Are there things to feel?
Definitely, and I will point at some.
Please
For
do.
example, what we can readily see is the rescue of these abducted people. In the past, when people are abducted, it takes a long time. But what accounts for the success of the release of these abductees is not just that the president is seated. It is that the president is firm on his decision. If you remember, last week when he had a meeting with the service chief, what he said clear was that I don't have the luxury of time. When a work is given to you, do it. This is the marked difference between what President Bola Tinubu is introducing as a leader in Nigeria to what we are used to it. Secondly, if you look at before he took the oath of office, there was this report that 75% of the states of the federation are bankrupt. After he removed the subsidy, we began to see income in terms of revenue from this oil that now led to the redistribution of this commonwealth to the federating unit. So much so that states of the federation now get almost 300% of what they are used to getting. And you are beginning to see that result. In fact, it afforded us the opportunity to have other, revenue to effect some of these interventions that the president is introducing, like what he gave to the Manufacturers Association in order to stimulate the economy. You also look at the forex market, the unification of the foreign exchange, which at the beginning, people felt as if it is a bad policy. Look at the effect at the moment. There is a stability in terms of the effort that the Naira is making in the international market. And what the Naira is today against the dollar is quite different from what it used to be like a week or 2 weeks ago.
Well, there's also this conversation or this talk about the authority or the government at the subnational not doing enough to complement efforts made by the federal government, by President Bola Tinubu's administration, because money shared in the federal allocation has increased. Allocations to state governors, state government has increased over the years, but it appears as if it's not trickling down.
On this issue, if you recall, I was like the John the Baptist in the wilderness when I began this cry that instead of looking at the federal government, we should look at the federating units. At the beginning, people were thinking everything lies in the powers of the president. Why are you demanding the governors to do what they are supposed to? And then I advised that if the president can ask the finance minister of the CBN to publish monthly allocation, when the Nigerian people know how much their state governors are earning, the governors are going to wake up. Now, Look at now the result. Look at the federating units. And now you can tell where exactly the problem is. You see, because our psychic before now, and that is because of the military administration in Nigeria, over time we tend to think, although in our mouth we say we exercise or we practice a federal system of government, but we still tend to think it is the unitary system. That's why what happens in my village, President Bwala Tinubu is responsible. What happens in a local government, people want to call the president. What happens in the state, people want to call the president. But a true federalism, federal system of government, means that matters, for example, of agriculture, they are in the concurrent, but largely in the federating unit. Matters of education, they are in the concurrent, largely in the federating unit. As a matter of fact, when you talk of dealing with security and insecurity, fundamentally it is at the local level. When you see local government and at the state level. And yet these governors have sufficient money to kickstart the work that will lessen the pressure on the federal government. So in our psyche, we tend to think it is unitary government. That's why everything that happens, President Bwala Tinubu is to be held accountable. And yet the difficulty of our democracy is that the president is incapacitated to compel a governor, to force a governor, or to apply what used to be the practice of the then General Olusegun Obasanjo, where if the governor is not doing what you like, you find undemocratic way of changing him. No. The only thing the president can do, which is what he has been doing, is when he calls these governors together, he appealed to them to use the money now that goes to state as well as the federal, local government to effect the change. Do you know how much that goes to the local government if it is actually put to use? I am telling you, our local government are going to be more productive than the state capital, because as a local unit, they have enormous amount. But most of the local government chairmen, it is a stipend. Money comes to the local government, they are giving allowance, and the rest of it is history. I saw a few days ago, a governor was on site. He saw one of the local government chairmen, he didn't do something well. He said, I will sack you. Under a democratic system, the man is elected. You cannot sack him. So these are the difficulty of what we are facing. But the point to be made is that the fundamentals of our economy are taking shape. And what the president is introducing is working. Look at the terrorism financing. Until the Binance operators were arrested, we begin to see confession. And then we're able to unravel terrorism financiers who had the courage and the temerity to release lists or names of those that were involved in terrorism financing. So you can see the reform taking place. There is confidence that is building at the grassroots. So what President Bwala Tinubu is introducing is like what we see in political process, where they say politics is local. You are beginning to see the effect at the local level. But whenever you mention the local government and the state, then it comes to the issue of the state governors and whether or not they deploy these monies in their respective states.
Yes,
that is the challenge. But at the federal level,
Bwala,
the president is doing his best.
Yeah, speaking about the state governors, recently President Bwala Tinubu also acknowledged the need for the creation of state police to tackle some of the security challenges facing the country. And we also saw recently, at the National Economic Council meeting, where it was reported that out of 36 states, just 16 states so far have sent in their reports on the creation of state police. 20 states are yet to turn in that report. So it seems now that there's that political will to tackle security issues, the state governors are foot dragging.
Yeah, because some of them do not buy that idea, because when probably they do not have the creative mind to begin to do it. But in my view, I think the federal government should guide, because when it comes to matters of arms, ammunition, and state police, it has to be federally controlled in the sense that there should be a form of constitutional, because this report they are bringing us to whether or not we agree to it, whether we have a funding, whether we have the manpower. But in terms of institutionalizing or establishing state police, it is a constitutional matter. Right. So either from the executive, the federal government, through the attorney general, can bring a reform agenda for a constitutional amendment to that purpose, or that the president will have to wait until the state produce their blueprint. Okay. But we have to also, I think that the president would also, in the meantime, because I can tell you, to be able to establish state police in Nigeria is the minimum time that you will have to establish that will be 12 months or 18 months. That's a fact.
All right, then.
But the way the president is dealing with insecurity, The president should also explore the idea of creating what we call, encouraging private military contractors, so that instead of the state
Bwala,
as an institution. Right.
Mr. Bwala, I'm sorry, we are out of time. We'll continue this conversation some other time. I appreciate your time and your contribution to the program. Thank you very much. Well, that's all on the program today. You can see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. My name is Femi Akonde. Thank you for watching.